For all of your personal injury needs, contact W. Mark McKee in Columbia, Louisiana. He can be reached at 318-649-2622. Mark is also a proud supporter of the African American community and can be counted on.
We can be most effective when we are engaged in the political process, and there is no time like the present. One of our main goals is effective advocacy through active participation from you. Those who stand for nothing will fall for anything. Our efforts to keep you engaged and informed as to the importance of current events happening locally and abroad started 2 years ago. Our number one goal is to make a difference. We need you. Join us at the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. Catch us at www.thesmokingglasshour.com.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. We are honored to have you as a guest tonight and want to thank each of you for your faithful support. Without further delay, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Baron Glass. Mr. Glass, take it away.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. Tonight's broadcast, we'll talk a little bit about Hillary Clinton. A week or so ago, we talked about Donald Trump and his presidency during the Republican National Convention. This week, we know that the Democratic National Convention kicked off today, and one of our very own co-hosts, Miss Debbie Dilks, is out actually in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, live at the convention. If you've been paying attention to what's been going on today, you'll see that there's been a lot of disruption during the convention itself from the beginning to end. Now, somewhere today, I believe somebody sent me a message indicating that they had put Bernie Sanders back on the nominating process, but I'm not sure if that is the case or not. Thomas or Julie was supposed to be fact-checking that to get us that information before we actually put it out there. So nevertheless, tonight's topic, we're going to talk about how will her presidency address the urgent race crises America is facing in 2016? What will Hillary Rodham Clinton presidency do to dismantle mass incarceration and address a police brutality culture targeted unmercifully towards people of color? If you're out there listening, you can call in at 773-897-6398, or you can go over to www.thesmokingglasshour.com. Now, we'd like to preface this as the challenges ahead of the U.S. in 2016 are alarming. We talked about, once again, a Trump's presidency. Tonight, once again, we will look at Hillary Clinton's platform for president. The 2016 election, in our opinion, is vital, and citizens must exercise their right to vote. We ask that you tune in or either call in and let your voice be heard. I believe Nikki is out there. I know Dave Lamont messaged me. He's probably not going to be able to join us tonight. Again, Deb, she is at the convention in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thanks, Belinda, for giving me that information. It's a roll call vote, Belinda is telling me, so thanks for getting me that information. I'm not sure if Aaron Hopkins will be joining us tonight. Hopefully Vanessa, Aaron will call in. Nikki, I'm going to get you to join in a little bit more tonight because I believe after the smoke has cleared and the dust has settled, I believe my throat might be stripped because it feels exactly like that. So it's kind of complicated and hard for me to talk right now, especially with this bow tie on. So I'm going to rely on you. Let's look at Hillary Clinton's record as a senator. Okay, she supported the Iraq war authorization. I'm just going to go down. She supported the Wall Street bailout, the TARP. She supported the Patriot Act of 2001. She supported the Patriot Act reauthorization in 2006. Foreign U.S. military intervention, she supported that. The TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, she supported that. The death penalty, she supports. The Keystone XL pipeline, she supported. The 2006 border fence legislation, she supported. And the offshore oil drilling, she supported. Now, she supports rather even right now. So we're just going to look at some of her record, and then we're going to try to tie this in with some of the urgent race crises that we're now faced with individuals across this country and the mass incarceration that we know we're now dealing with. Nikki, how are you doing tonight?
I'm fine, Baron. How are you?
I'm fine. Nikki, let's kind of start for the sake of debate. We know that most people are saying that neither candidate is a good candidate. But when you look at that comment, they'll say that neither candidate is a good candidate. However, some say that they will support Trump over Clinton, and then some say that they'll support Clinton over Trump. For the purposes of tonight, we're talking about the presidency of Hillary Clinton, and we've made no hidden agenda about this. Our support is not with Trump or Clinton. So no one can label us as being one-sided when it comes to it, because we're just trying to give another side of the information. Let's look at Clinton's presidency. From what you have been able to see, discover, and become more aware of, let's start from that point regarding Hillary Clinton, and let's move forward.
You know, Baron, you've kind of just given a litany of things that she supported, and there's no one thing in there that supports really the average man, the average citizen, whether it's jobs going out, whether it's oil drilling, fracking, death penalty. There's nothing I heard that really, in my mind, associates Mrs. Clinton with the common man and the plight of the common man.
Mm-hmm.
What I did today is I looked at her record, her race record, okay, just because that was our topic tonight. So, and I looked at, and we've made no bones on this show how Bill passed the crime bill in 1994 that she advocated, and really led the language of super predators that needed to be brought to heel. But I even went past that. That was her husband's bill. But she advocated the welfare reform bill. Now, Hillary's always portrayed herself as a women and families champion. And what that Welfare Reform Act did, and they said they were going to end welfare as they knew it, has been devastating, and the suffering to millions of families over 30 years, and they're still suffering from it. In supporting that, within very short order, the poverty level doubled. Men were being incarcerated because of the crime bill. The women and families men were also being denied any kind of public assistance, food stamps, housing, jobs, everything when they were released. But the families that were left, okay, so just to bring it down to human soul. So the men are being incarcerated. The women have no support for their children. Their men are incarcerated. If they had, and they would be denied public housing, if even a guest in their home was associated with a crime. It was kind of structured so even when their men came home, they could not live with their families.
Mm-hmm.
This is families and children. So, I mean, the punitiveness, now many thousands of those families were evicted. I'm talking the women and the children, because she's portrayed herself as a champion of. There was no provision for those families that were evicted. They were basically put on the street. And you'll see that there's correlation between homelessness and that time just after the Welfare Reform Act.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no provision. Child poverty doubled. And at one point, I think, just let me get the statistic. I think public housing was cut $17 billion, and $19 billion was redirected into building prisons, where the statement was made that prison building was the new subsidized housing for the poor. So I mean, I want to go back to that time, and that happened after 1994. I want to fast forward to Mrs. Clinton in the 2008 Democratic primary against Barack Obama. And again, we're talking race, okay? In 2008, the 7 Democratic candidates were asked if they would end the sentencing disparity that was causing such a mass incarceration. All 6 said yes. She said no. In 2008 as well, she ran an ad campaign against President Obama. It was called the 3 a.m. Ad. It was loaded with racial symbolism. It was talked about at the time. She also, I think I go back then. I remember the exact moment when she alluded to stay in the race, although President Obama had a 20-point lead, because she reminded us that Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. I remember it clearly thinking, is she suggesting almost subliminally that President, that Obama would be assassinated? That's when Hillary Clinton was drawn for me then. So I mean, these things. So there was another instance where she unambiguously would not state that President Obama was a Christian, nor had ever been a Muslim. I think we all remember that. And she and Bill, I think, did their utmost to have him reelected, to the point that Bill had to tell on national television that he was not a racist. So we go to that. Now I want to go to 2012. She's now the elected senator from New York. There is not one piece of legislation through her whole tenure in 4 years, where New York was the police brutality capital of the world. In the 5 years during her tenure, not only were the police brutality cases that were visible, but they paid $534 million in out-of-court or civil settlements for police brutality. There's not one piece of legislation during her 4-year tenure as senator from the state of New York. And so I'm looking at all of this and I see nothing. Meanwhile, in 2012, you're really, really aware of what this mass incarceration has done to the black community. Now we go to the primary election here. She made no mention of this as an issue until the young woman from Black Lives Matter, Ashley Williams, I think her name was, interrupted a fundraiser. She had her forcibly removed, and she turned to her audience and said, "Let's get back to more important things." I mean, it was a disgrace. It was a disgrace. From there, she begins to pick up, Bernie's policies. It's now become an issue, but the way she's addressing Bernie, she's talking about we have to talk about political realities and be pragmatic. It's not until April of 2015 that she even begins to talk about mass incarceration, an overhaul of the criminal justice system, and it's Bernie is at her heels, and in my estimation, it's a dark courting of the black voter.
Mm-hmm.
As I look at Hillary's record in race, I mean, I see nothing that would indicate nothing, and of course she's always been accused of the flip-flop and changing the positions. That's why I believe she does. I see nothing in the only thing we can go with is with the past. Okay? We get an oops from Bill. Sorry, I overshot the mark on the prime bill. Her whole kind of apology for the super predator comment was, "Oh, when I look back, I wish I hadn't said that." I mean, I find it very, very difficult to believe that Hillary's going to go in there as a champion to kind of overhaul this massive structure that's in place that is causing suffering, continued suffering to millions of people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me read.
Something in the background.
Yeah, let me read a few comments. One comment is, good start to the Democratic National Convention. Everything going that Trump manufactures, suits, shirts, ties, cufflinks, furniture, vodka, etc. AOL, all made in other countries. Okay, now let's look at this, what you just said. From one of the attorneys that's out there listening right now. Says, because the Supreme Court is the only branch of government where they, conservative white Americans, can maintain power with the browning of America, they will be outnumbered soon and will not be able to win popular elections. Therefore, the only way they will be able to control the law is to control how the Constitution is interpreted. The Supreme Court answers only to the Constitution, so that's why they are making a beeline to it. Y'all better wake up. So if Clinton gets in and she's only able to appoint 2 or 3 Supreme Court justices, isn't that enough, in fact, to select or elect her rather than say no to Hillary, yes to Trump, or yes to one of the other parties, when in fact neither one of those parties, third parties, have the opportunity to win? So if you look at just that one issue alone with the Supreme Court, and we're talking about the urgent race crises in America and the interpretation of the Constitution and the law itself, is that not good enough to consider Hillary Clinton relative to the conversation tonight? I'll take it to you, Nikki. Aaron is going to be in shortly, so go ahead on, Nikki.
Can I address one back to the attorney that I was, and this is Michelle Alexander is my source, and there were 3 cases that she cites, and she actually titled this chapter "Closing the Doors." So there are 3 cases. Let me just since we're talking with the attorney, one is Armstrong versus United States, one is McCleskey versus Kemp, and the other is let me just get it, because I'm sure the attorney's familiar with it. Kirkett versus Elm. And those 3 cases collectively, I believe that one was trying to jury selection and the permissive dismissal of black jurors in jury selection for promiscuous reasons. It was upheld. Where really prosecutors could dismiss for very permissive reasons. I think Armstrong was concerned. I think he was a murder case, and it came to kind of light with studies that white prisoners were being diverted to state courts where the penalties were lesser, and black prisoners were being directed to federal courts where the penalties were more severe. It was ruled so there was a request for the prosecutor's records, and it basically ruled that the defendant must prove racial bias before he can request the records. Basically a catch-22 situation. The very thing he was asking for was the thing he had to prove before it could be produced. That was the second case. The third one, I'll have to have a look at that. But Ms. Alexander calls that closing the courts. Basically, the 3 of them together allows that really the racial injustice could exist within the criminal justice system. The only allowance was as long as a racial slur or a racial statement were not made. And Ms. Alexander calls it closing the court to any appeal of racism to any court, to any jury, to anything. Can I? So, the Supreme Court, as I'm reading it today, is pretty stacked it's kind of done a tremendous number on civil rights in the last 15 years.
Right. So again, if we already know the Scalia type people that Trump has already indicated that he's going to put on the court, my question again is, if Hillary is so bad and she has that opportunity to do just that alone, is that worth the opportunity, or is that not worth the opportunity? And you just continue to go forward, and if you get Trump, you deal with the Supreme Court nominees perhaps for the next 30 years. I mean, how do we look at that when we're talking about the race crises in America, addressing the mass incarceration, which we know how Scalia, how he ruled when it came to these particular type cases. If we know that law enforcement, or whatever the case may be, is out there doing whatever it is that they're doing now, and the court has to interpret the Constitution as to the way the law is applied, is it worth it to say no to Hillary relative to the conversation and the topic tonight? And it's not putting you on the spot. We're just talking about this because this is the conversation, what we're dealing with. I'm not asking you for your personal position. We already know that. But for the sake of the conversation.
Well, I think it's such a weighty question, Baron, that I'm almost loath to, and I think it's definitely one that truly needs to be considered. I think the damage that Trump can do and will do, is going to be monstrous if he's elected. And the hope that maybe it all falls apart and then you undo it, you kind of create a new system. But that's a long time in the future, I'm sure. I think it's a weighty question, and I think it's one for people's conscience, and it's one that truly should be deeply considered. Rather than a surface, I'm just for Bernie kind of, it's a weightier question than that.
Right, and I'm asking that, and the reason why I'm asking is because I think my position has been very clear. But the more and more I sit and think about it, of course, Pastor Riggins and I talked about this yesterday. I told him that I have to find something that can allow me to justify with my conscience, because I don't like Clinton. I don't like Trump. I have my reasons for not supporting Clinton, and I definitely have my reasons for not supporting Trump. So if I vote for a third party, I am in fact allowing Trump to become closer to that 50+1. Okay, so when I look at all of these important issues, and it wouldn't be me choosing the lesser of the two evils. It would be the person that could at least identify with something that I identify with. Again, I'm not saying that I'm sold on Clinton, because I'm not. I'm not saying that I'm going to vote for her, but for, because what I'm seeing is that some of Bernie's supporters, which I am and was and still is, politics is very strange. If you don't get your way, then you can't, continue to, I'm going to use the word whine, but I'm going to use that loosely, so it's not disrespect to you, Belinda, or anybody else that's out there listening. But what I am going to look at is that Bernie is telling people now, he didn't sell anybody out. He's saying that he would much rather it be Clinton, even though he has his strong opposition against her. He would much rather it be her than Trump, because if it's Trump, a time bomb is going to be going off. If it's Clinton, you can pretty much attempt to manage her. Now, I have to look at it from a political standpoint, that people are holding all of these personal grudges against her. Well, the way I look at it, what happens to forgiveness? A person can be 70 and change their mind and realize that they have been gullible throughout their life. A person can be 30. And I guess what I'm asking, Nikki, relative to what we're talking about tonight, and for the sake of those purposes, the presidency with the race crises and the mass incarceration, for those purposes, because we're looking at a Clinton presidency. If you look at that Supreme Court and those federal judges that will be appointed under her administration, would that in fact be a benefit to this particular community that we're talking about tonight, or would it be a detriment by allowing Trump to get in? That's the point that I'm trying to get at.
It would be a benefit. You know, when I looked at those decisions today and how really kind of punitive and closing the door they were. I mean, we're sitting on the cusp of this really need to change. I think any more punitive laws. You know, how many years to undo that? You know, one of those decisions has never been, I think it was the Armstrong decision, there's never been a challenge against it. Because there hasn't been I mean, it's so airtight, you know, that, you know, I looked at those today, and before you even brought this up, Baron, and I think our children and you know, and people right now will suffer will suffer more under a Trump court, a Trump-appointed court for a long period of time. I mean, that's the... Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, this has to be a, you know, not an emotional decision almost. I mean, this one, you know, if your conscience tells you you're against her, I think it's some deep praying and some deep reflection of what it will mean to so many others. You know, what it will mean, because you can be sure if Trump is in there and we get more of those Scalia-type judges, I mean, that system will get so much more airtight, you know, tight.
Well,
that to undo it.
Let's look at this. Let's look at it this way: if you get Clinton and you're not satisfied, 4 years and she's out. If you get Trump, 30 plus years of Trump presidency will continue to exist. Now, to me, you know, that's something. Again, those are the options that I'm trying to look at now. As a black man, okay, and excuse me, Nick, because it's very hard for me to swallow, so it may take a pause in when I do it. But if I look at Trump as a black man, he is against the principles and the things that would affect me and my people directly. So I can't go with that. Coming from a history of division, coming from a history of bigotry, coming from a history of all of these negative things that America has yet to accept and acknowledge and apologize. As a black person, I can't even consider Trump under any circumstance. If it was Trump and the devil, I couldn't vote. That would be the first time that I couldn't vote, because they are one and the same. Hillary and Trump are one and the same, but would I much rather have 4 years of Clinton and get her out of office than have 4 to 8 years of Trump plus an additional 22 years on the Supreme Court or better. See, a rational thinker, excuse me, would be able to strongly look at that, because my emotions are not involved. I do not like Hillary Clinton. I do not like her fundamental differences. I fundamentally disagree with her policies. I fundamentally disagree with some of the things that she's done in the past to get where she's at. However, I respect a lot of things that she's done. What I wrote today, Nikki, something to the fact that most women, or some women, or many women, are, in my opinion, jealous of this lady because she made a decision to keep her family together for whatever reason, and her own personal reason, and she is as tough as most men who these women are married to. So I give her credit. But the fundamental differences that I have with her, they go to the mass incarceration. They go to the flip-flopping. They go to, she says this today and she does something else tomorrow, which, again, as an elected official, as information comes, you are entitled to change your mind. So I don't really hold that much against her. But when we talk about the community as a whole, okay, would that presidency of Clinton versus Trump, how would that play out when it comes to the American society as we look at it today. A buddy just posted a video with another officer, this white police officer, is Tacoma, Washington, beating, choking, and tasing a 15-year-old black girl who was riding her bike through the mall parking lot. Again, every day we see this. If Trump has already prefigured what it is that he's going to do, I'm not understanding how Clinton could be worse than Trump for 4 years than he can for a lasting legacy, which would be, he's already said, I personally can change these things. What do you think about that, Nikki?
Byron, I think, I had said earlier before you started to speak, this cannot be an emotional decision. I saw one of the protesters walking today, and she was being interviewed, and it was Bernie or nothing. And I caught the zeal, and I caught the passion, okay? But I also watched that because I had already been looking at the Supreme Court, and I thought, I was going to make an emotional decision. And it's the revolution in this, but then I listened to Bernie speak today. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time I ever saw Bernie booed by his own people.
Right. And let me ask you this, Nick. Let me ask you this while we're there, because I was going to address that. Is that, in fact, disrespect to this man that you... It's kind of like this. 1 minute you supported me. Now that we disagree, everything has gone out of the window. I think that's very disrespectful, and I think that's a disservice to the political process.
I caught that too, and I thought, why are you burning them? And then I read a little caption, Bernie, your ideas were bigger than you. And I thought the man originated the ideas, and what he was asking for, okay, what he was asking for, through that whole speech, is to work with it. I was beaten. We need to work. I'm not going anywhere. Let's work within the system. I saw an article today that said, wouldn't it be a great Senate majority leader? And I thought, okay, we were beaten, but he isn't going anywhere, and his ideas aren't going anywhere.
Right.
And he's going to fight like he always fought, but he can fight within the system. If Trump is elected, there's no Bernie in fighting within the system. Mm-hmm. Because his voice will be just not heard. We've got an obstructionist Congress. It's up for, most of it is up, I think 8% is up for re-election in November. Take that energy, get them out. Mm-hmm. Work within the system.
Right. And again, what we're doing is just laying out some options that people can look at. Not trying to tell a person to do Clinton, not trying to tell a person to do Trump. However, when you're looking at a situation like this, okay, again, you have to look at the lasting effect of what it could do. Again, if Bernie is in there fighting, okay, Hillary doesn't do what she's supposed to do in 4 years. It's absolutely no way in West HELL that Bernie is going to allow Hillary to get over because you've burned me now. Okay, what this man is doing is trying to say, okay, it's not about me. It's about us trying to save what we know Trump is going to destroy, not just for 4 years with Hillary, not just with 8 years with Hillary, but for 20, 30, because again, once those laws are interpreted, once this guy goes out and does what he says he's going to do, then it's too late for, so let me ask you this, Nikki, for the sake of debate, can this be considered people voting against their own interests?
No, I think as you were talking, Baron, I realized, we can all have lofty and noble ideals of how we would, and really beautiful ideals. But I think in this one, you got to ask yourself, who hurts for my ideals? Who suffers for my ideals? And I think if Bernie supporters might ask themselves that, and maybe the gal that was walking today, she isn't going to suffer inordinately from Trump being in the White House for 4 years, but there's millions going to suffer. There's millions going to suffer. and that suffering will be long and hard to do. And I think that's the question that's got to be asked.
Well, Nikki, let's look at this then.
I have the right to keep the ideal and cause the suffering and be party to and part of the cause of the suffering of others.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at this. Okay, we know Jill Stein and I believe it's Johnson. They both are polling less than 15%. Okay, so we know that neither one of them have the opportunity to become the next president. So we know that Bernie has already not caved. He's done what he felt was good for the party and the opportunity to elect somebody that he feels he can work with. Okay. If we know that Trump has treated women whatever kind of way, he said all these types of things about women. We know what he said about his daughter and how he's touched his daughter on national TV and all these other things relative directly to women. We know that if he puts a Scalia-type judge, 2 judges, 3 judges on the court, just being a woman alone, not a male, just a woman, why would a woman accept 30 years of what Trump could do versus 4 to 8 years of what Hillary could do? Talk to me about that.
I have no idea, because Hillary has championed herself or has positioned herself as a champion of women's rights, and to a great degree, I kind of part ways with Hillary in the sense that if you're white and you're economically viable, and that's the white woman that Hillary has helped along. Okay, I charge Hillary with no caring for the poor and the poor women, the poor Spanish women, the poor black women, and those children. That's why I charge Hillary with. So, but as a woman and advocating education and those kind of things, I mean, she has advocated that. So, I don't know how any woman can look at Trump, but then there's women that think that way, and really envision. I mean, I think what he'll do, and this is, my personal views or my personal. I think he'll turn abortion rights. I think he won't. The gains that women have made, equal representation in the workforce, equal pay, this type of thing, will all be turned back. Mm-hmm. I mean, this woman, this man, I mean, it's so obvious, regards women as kind of like a property to be used, bought, and sold. I mean, it's he stated it. You don't even have to wonder what this man thinks. Mm-hmm. He stated it. He's shown it. If you really take who Trump has problems with, unless you're a white American male, white Caucasian, he's got problems with everybody else, black, Muslim, women, Mexican, Latino. It doesn't matter. Unless you're a white American male, you're not favored by Trump in any kind of way at all. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's ruled on everybody else.
Right. Well, and his base is the angry wing of the GOP. Let me bring in Aaron Hopkins. Aaron, tonight we're talking about how will Hillary Rodham Clinton's presidency address the urgent race crises America is facing in 2016. What will Hillary Rodham Clinton presidency do to dismantle mass incarceration and address a police brutality culture targeted unmercifully toward people of color? Aaron, I know you've been able to listen in, and I know you can pick up exactly where we're at. So come on in, Aaron, and talk to us from your standpoint and where you sit and what you see.
Okay, Baron, just listening to Nikki and yourself in the last few minutes, let me answer the question first directly in terms of her presidency addressing things that she indirectly had a hand in formulating, which is mainly mass incarceration. I don't see or believe that her presidency will do anything at all dismantle it. I see that it will speak to it in a way to coddle or get maybe folks to sympathize with her effort, which will be little to nothing to fix that problem. And part of that is that's why I have the stance that I have when it comes to politics. Again, listening to you and Nikki and Barry, I know you have years and years of experience in politics, and this is in no way disrespect to you, but this is a perfect machine in terms of compromising everybody's integrity when it comes down to doing what's right. But you're absolutely right. Talk about what Bernie is attempting to do, stepping aside from his, which I never really felt like Bernie was necessarily personally pushing agendas. I think he was pushing agendas, and his pushing agendas that he's been pushing all along, like Nikki has said. However, when it comes down to running for the president, you do have to take on a little more weight of responsibility of what you believe in. With that being said, again, I think Hillary Clinton, now that she has named her vice president, I think she's going to take a big hit with some of the women that Nikki was speaking of. But I don't really think she cares at the end of the day. I think that she will be able to manipulate some things and make the VP the fall guy, because this guy's history is tough on crime type stance in politics. I mean, there's no getting around it. So everything that you just said, Baron, in terms of, I just don't see where she would really be able to truthfully speak to mass incarceration, things of that nature with this guy, this gentleman, Tim Kaine, as the vice president, with his history in crime. Now, you said something else, Aaron. I want to speak to it's very interesting. You asked about, or you spoke about Hillary being probably maybe accused of a lot of things that she hasn't actually done, which I wouldn't disagree with that. And you mentioned the word forgiveness. And again, going back to politics and the way politics is set up, politics doesn't have any room for forgiveness. It doesn't allow a person who may be a person of integrity very much room to maneuver. And let me give you a better example of what I'm saying. So we know how long Secretary of State Clinton has been in politics. So with some of the things that we've all witnessed, and even Mr. Trump used the term poor decision making, which I don't think anybody here can disagree with that. So, but because of the deal that she has made with those in corporate America, it makes her maneuver and wiggle room very, very tough to maneuver in, even if she had a change of heart. You understand what I'm saying when I'm saying that, Baron? So, in other words, some of the things that you're talking about that we're discussing, let's just say she gets into the White House and she decides she wants to, in fact, dismantle or at least attempt and go to work with restructuring the way, let's just say, mandatory minimums and things of the nature are presently, handled in this country. Okay, so she does that, but now she's got her vice president is a man who's also had a record on in terms of being maybe a deputy sheriff type of mentality with war on crime, war on drugs, all of the things of this nature. So it really looks disingenuous for her to even say it now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a heavy task.
Aaron, I 100% disagree with that assessment respectfully, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. Because the same, whether it's local, state, or federal, there are things that the public are just not aware of when you're at that decision-making table to do this, that, thus, and so. You mentioned the poor decision-making. Okay? Donald Trump has the same, if not worse. You mentioned the deals with Wall Street. Trump has made deals with Putin and anybody else. When we look at the bigotry, when we look at the divisiveness, all of those things that black people have, in fact, fought for, when you make a comparison, it has nothing to do with the lesser two evils at this point. It has something to do, and my thought just now, if either one of my daughters came to me and say, Daddy, I know that you're not voting for Hillary Clinton, but would you do it for me? That's one reason why I would vote for her. Why? Because Trump presidency would have more of an effect on my daughters than he would on me. So my job would be to take care of the interest of my two kids. So when I'm looking at all of this and I'm listening to different people talk, I'm like, there's a such thing as settling versus sacrificing. Okay, when you settle for something, that's the irrational aspect of it. But when you make a sacrifice, because Clinton, regardless as to what deal she's made, they're not going to be able to control her every aspect of what she's going to do or what she's going to be able to do. Because if Clinton get in now and the Congress stays the same and the Senate stays the same, we still have a Barack Obama presidency. So it's not just about what Clinton wants. It's about what those other legislators want as well. Now, and the reason why I say I disagree with that, Aaron, because, and from a respectful standpoint, is because, again, there's been some decisions that I've had to make. I'll give you a classic example. We have several members. Okay, there was a 3-3 and a 1 vote. Okay, why am I going to steady hold this 1 vote out there when I know neither one of those other 3 on those sides are not going to change their mind? So it's either I'm part of the process, which is part of the problem, or part of the solution. My job is to get in and get the best that I can get with every decision that it is I'm making. Now, I'm not defending Clinton by no means, because I have said it, been adamant about it. I fundamentally disagree with her, and in some aspect, I don't like some of the things that she's done. Do I trust her? No. But my trust against her is not as great as it is for somebody who's going to have a direct policy that affects the things that my mother fought for, that my forefathers fought for, and that all those civil rights people fought for. So when you look at Trump versus Hillary, I think there are a lot of things that people can look at strategically, and they can make their own decision. Now, what decision they make, that's on them, not me. And I'm not trying to get somebody to vote for Trump or Hillary at this point. But what I am doing is trying to open up some eyes and ears so we can make some progress, because we all know if Trump get in, we already know what's going to happen. Come on in, Aaron.
Yeah, you know, Baron, I hear what you're saying, and let me extend part of what my point was from a political standpoint, not necessarily with Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump, his record is not, everything that he's failed in is not based on his involvement in politics. So we still are yet to see, even though we've got a very clear preview, and nobody has to make any assumptions on guesses on his thinking. But what I'm saying is, he in my mind, he's not even a political figure. I can't give him even that much credit. He's a guy who has manipulated a system of really popularity, and at the same time, he's tapped into a legacy of racism in this country that all he did was basically plug into it. He definitely didn't create it, but he was smart enough to, in terms of a marketing standpoint, and that's his savvy. He's not even that good at it from a business standpoint. But what I'm saying is, he doesn't have a political resume worth even discussing. We know that he's, thrown his hat in the ring before in terms of a Republican candidate, but to me, again, all of these things point back to the same thing in my mind, which is the Donald Trump brand. So if this thing ended tomorrow, he could go back and say, look at how I shifted, the Republican Party just using the Donald Trump brand. There's nothing that any of us on this line could say against that. As negative and as divisive as it is, he in fact has done that. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, politically, this guy has no merit or weight. Now, of course, he's gaining momentum popularity-wise, but this guy has yet to even show that he can develop a real policy on any issue.
Which, Aaron, you are exactly right. Which the problem is not Trump. It is his supporters. You just validated. If this guy has absolutely no experience politically, no experience from the legislative body, but he's able to manipulate everybody and everything that he comes in contact with, why in West Hell would he be a better candidate in the Oval Office than somebody else that's running?
But and see, this is where I got to go back and say again, this is where the American people, have to begin to look much deeper than the surface. Now, he's continuously, from day one, mentioned that he loves the uneducated voter. He's not just saying that to say it. There's something behind him saying that. Now, let's go ahead and paint the picture of him in the White House. We can't forget or discount that there's a whole lot of other countries in this world that I would say after maybe his first week, there would be so much worldwide turmoil that they would force this country to literally escort this guy out of the White House. To me, it's almost like a movie. Before you can get to halfway through the movie, the credits are already rolling. Something happened in the control room, and you're not going to be able to get to the end of the movie. That's how unrealistic this guy as a president is, not just from our view, but we have to look at it now from a world view. This guy, again, he doesn't have the skills nor the know-how to execute anything politically. So him sitting in the White House, I would go back and grab George W. Bush and put him in there before and I'm talking about from a standpoint of intelligence now. I'm not talking, not even policy. But it's a total mockery, Baron. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you.
Thing that everybody's saying.
Yeah.
I hear everything that everybody's saying from a fear standpoint, but we got to push a little bit further into the reality realm. I don't see this guy even getting a foot into the White House. Now, I'm not saying he can't be elected, but listen, again, we got to think past the surface. So if he gets in the White House, what would you, just anybody who wants to chime in, what would the first week of a Trump presidency look like?
Well, let me chime in. It doesn't matter whether it's his first week or his first 4 years. The point is that it will be catastrophic, because the old saying is, if a person tell you who they are, believe them. Trump has already told you who he is. So whether it's 1 week, whether it's 1 month, whether it's 1 year, one presidential term, he's going to be catastrophic. That's the way I look at it. Nikki, you can jump in and give your assessment.
I'm just thinking it wouldn't matter if he put on a robe like Hugh Hefner and had his wife posing. I mean, and that's what I think the White House would look like. But we talk about his supporters, Aaron, but also he's surrounded by avaricious Republicans.
Right.
We have
absolutely.
And this is what I figure. For a man like that at the head, okay, who's he going to appoint to this position? Who's he going to appoint to that position? What executive order is he going to issue that's outlandish, who is he going to put on that Supreme Court? And that's the damage that he can do. That's the damage that he can do. Barron was talking about children. I know you've got your son. Happy graduation. I saw the party set up on your Facebook page, Aaron. Congratulations to your boy.
Thank you.
But I mean, what are the decisions that a Supreme Court that he would have? And you know, it's one of the first things he would do, because they've blocked Obama's nomination. It's not going to happen. You know, I can just imagine a man like that. I mean, he might just use a damn pen, like have a few names. It doesn't matter. They're going to be, the fact that David Dukes is running in Louisiana, senator, you know, who the hell knows? He might put him on the Supreme Court. You know, and it's a lifetime appointment.
Right.
You know, and then how does it affect, you know, your son in I think Barron's got an incredible point. You know, I can have all the ideals that I want, but truly the damage that this man is capable of doing and will do is going to affect the next generation. Now, I don't know if you were in, Aaron, when Barron asked me to. There is nothing. I went through Hillary's whole race record. There is nothing. I mean, she is responsible for so much. She's taken money from the prison industrial complex. I don't think, and no matter what she says, okay, I don't think her heart is there. I don't think her sympathy is there. Her record isn't there. I think she would. I think she kind of, you know, came with some liberal policies because of Bernie. I also think she wooed the black, you know, she did the honeymoon thing with the black vote. I think she's duplicitous. I think her record stands for herself, and it's a miserable record of human suffering. All right? But I think, as compared, and I would never, ever, I don't trust her. I think she's duplicitous. But when I look at the damage he can do for the next generation and the generation after it, and the damage that will be lasting.
See,
more punitive than it is right now. I think I kind of like, you know, almost like I say, it's a deep prayer conscience thing to really get to this point.
Well, you're right, Nikki. And again, I think in some aspects, because of a person dislike. Okay, I was just talking to Belinda out there on the chat line. Now, everybody's talking about Hillary can't be trusted. Hillary can't be trusted. Well, if everybody was scrutinized like her for the past 30 years, you probably would say that about some of the same people that you voted for. Now, is the lady, does she twist and turn? Yes, she does. Absolutely. But is she this monster that everybody is out to put her? I honestly 100% disagree with that. Being in politics, because I know people who fit the same aspect and have done the same thing that Hillary has done, and they're not nowhere close to being labeled as she's done. Okay, now, I think because she's been out there for 30 years, out there in the trenches, okay, and people have been able to see her, she comes across as being angry, mean, just like my voice. Some people may be listening saying, that guy's angry. I'm absolutely in good condition. It's just passion. So if I was advising her, I would tell her to work on her delivery, but she can't help how she looks. You know, but my point is, I'm talking about being fair. Sometimes you have to remove yourself from the situation and put other people meaning the next 30 years, the next generation of kids that are coming along. It's not going to affect me, what Trump does directly, indirectly, man, because if he imposed laws that are detrimental to people like me that have already been imposed, or he continues to fulfill those promises, yes, it's going to affect me directly. But when I look at what this guy has said because I'm surrounded by all women. Okay, so more of my issues are concerned with women than they are for men, because women are surrounded by me. I'm surrounded by women. Specifically, a 14-year-old child who, if she decided to go out and have an abortion, whether I like it or not, that's her personal choice between her and her God. If my 24-year-old wanted to do the same, if either one of them ended up being gay, those are their decisions. And I wouldn't want them hindered because a person like Trump, because he feels like what he says goes. So I'm kind of looking at it, from that angle. Again, I have not. If I decide to vote for Hillary, everybody will know, because I've said that I'm not voting for her. If I change my mind, I will. Right now, I'm looking at Jill Stein and somebody else that's out there, because I fundamentally disagree with her. But as I continue to study and show myself approved of what I'm dealing with, the circumstances that arrive, my position is developing a little bit different, more and more and more. But if I had to vote today for Trump or Hillary, it would not be for either one of them. So I want to make sure that that's understood. Come on back in, Nick.
I feel the when you say 30-year and the scrutiny and that type of thing, and very few would hold up. But she, in my opinion, I mean, she is responsible for just indirectly, directly, just so much suffering, so much suffering, that it's hard for me to reconcile when I look at, I know she's been under scrutiny, and I said at one point, Hillary leaves some massive bodies in her wake, and she does, and poor decision making, whatever. I think she has no moral compass, really. That's my problem with her. I think she it's lack of care. I think I cannot think that oops, I'm sorry for that much misery and untold suffering is enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, my problem with Hillary is not the time she's been investigated or no charges against her. It really is that it's her lack of morality. I think she's an amoral woman, and so that's my problem with Hillary. But the more I look at what really, and even talking tonight, I mean, I could really see this guy picking an attorney general with a pin, while he's in his robe having a cigar, because he's going to treat that White House just like that. And yes, other countries, I mean, I read the European press, and they're standing back aghast looking at this world press. But there's a certain point, if he's president, these powerful people will manage to deal together. And they'll manage to deal with him too, because in many ways America holds the purse string, So I even think all of that will fall into place. It becomes a norm. It really is the Aaron, I don't know if you heard Baron Reed, the attorney's comment that called in about the Supreme Court, and I think it's huge. I think it's huge. Because that will affect the next 20, 30, 40 years, and it's huge, and it's punitive now. It will just, it'll take us back 50 years if he gets a couple of nominees on the Supreme Court.
Well, I'll tell you.
I didn't hear.
Go ahead, Aaron.
No, I just want to say I didn't hear what you read, Baron. I haven't.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me go back and read it, Aaron. Dr. Sally Broder's out there listening, responding on the live link. Aaron, because the Supreme Court is the only branch of government where they, conservative white Americans, can maintain power with the browning of America, they will be outnumbered soon and will not be able to win popular elections. Therefore, the only way they will be able to control the law is to control how the Constitution is interpreted. The Supreme Court answers only to the Constitution, so that's why they are making a beeline to it. Y'all better wake up.
I want to say something, Baron. It's never a popular outlook on things. Unfortunately, to me, I'm not into popularity, so it doesn't faze me one bit. But we also have to, those of us who have somewhat of a, I don't want to use the term religious. I'm just going to say an outlook on divine intervention. We have to look at history from a different angle, which is whenever a government, especially a government that goes to the power of one such as of America, there always seems to come to a point where the rulership, the leadership of that particular government gets to a point where there's so much chaos and their will never seems to be in favor of stabilizing it and bringing it to an equal playing field. In other words, there's always that point where those who are oppressed continue to be trampled on. And so I think we have arrived at a time where we're making an assumption that the American government will remain unchanged for the next 30 to 40 years, which I would disagree with that. And my disagreement with that is based on what we see going on in the country and going on all over the world. If we just take a look at the weather, it is, to me, it's obviously saying something in terms of things will not be able to continue the way that they are without some form of divine intervention. And if in fact that means that a Trump gets in the White House and attempts to execute some of the things that we're talking about, which I don't believe at all that he would not try to do everything that we're saying, but I also at the same time believe that could be that trigger to have absolute divine intervention. Now this is totally Aaron Hoffman's talking, not trying to get anybody else to put a religious spin on it, but that's just, I think, an aspect that we should consider.
Well,
yeah, and I'd like to kind of, chime in here. No one knows the hour, no one knows the day, but the Father. Okay, and yes, I agree with you. I think that things reach a point of corruption, the center will not hold. Okay, the center will not hold. And if in fact that is to happen, it will happen. It will happen. And I believe it will happen also. But no one knows the hour and no one knows the day but the Father. And so in my looking at it right now, and I think you can be kind of religious without seeing the trajectory, okay? And it's on its way in the world, and there is a worldwide. I posted something on my Facebook today, an article about our foreign policy and how we've destroyed countries and people and their homes, and we've created this massive refugee population that's wandering without homes. Okay, we have domestic violence and terrorism here. We have it abroad. We're a violent. The center will not hold. Okay, and if Trump is to be elected, he will be elected if it's in the divine order of things. But I think as a responsible human being too, I need to look at what part. Do I want to play a part in that? And again, I don't know. I mean, I absolutely get where you're coming from, but I've got to go back to nobody knows the hour of the day. And so what do I do right now?
Well,
what do I do right now as a God-loving woman? What are my responsibilities right now?
Well, Nikki, on the flip side of that, the divine intervention part, the way I look at that is this. If a person don't do their part, which means go out to vote, we can pray all day long that Trump don't get in office. It's just not going to happen. What the way I see it is this, is that, and I'm looking at this from a parent standpoint. My number one job as a parent is to take care of my kids, is to look out for the best interests of my kids. And if I'm logical and I know that Trump is going to be devastating to my kids, I can't consciously sit here and say that I'm going to vote for anybody else other than somebody who has a chance to win or beat Trump. Otherwise, again, I'm struggling with where I'm at now because I just have an issue with the lady. I have even a greater issue with Trump because he is divisive. He's everything that I stand for, he's against. There's absolutely nothing that Donald Trump and I have in common, not even our male aspect. We don't even have that in common because I think he's a fraud. He's a fake in every aspect of his being. Okay, he's a dictator. If he does not get his way with Putin, if he doesn't get his way with some of these other foreign, what is he going to do? Pout? What is he going to do with the Senate? Shut the government down? We already know this guy's behavior. So if God has already told us, allowed us to see what type of person Trump is, then I can't understand why somebody would even consider him who say that, okay, I'm fighting for all of these things that we know Trump stands for. So it's either you for or you're against. There's no middle of the road. It's either you're for Trump or you're against him. Okay, it just so happens we have other candidates that we can vote for. Again, when I look at the other candidates, if a person is polling at 5%, my question is, I don't have to pray to God that they're going to win because we already know what the polling said. Which people say, well, I don't believe in polls. Well, if you tell them today that the polls say that they're 51% ahead of somebody, I guarantee they're going to believe it. But if they're behind, well, see, that's propaganda and that's hoopla. Again, we're not trying to change anybody's mind tonight. We're just talking about all these other options, trying to get people to look at these other issues that they must see. Again, I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. But I do like the fact that all of the stuff that he stated, he's now saying that I'm willing to put those things aside and go with the best person who I have a chance to work with. Now, at some point, we're going to have adults out here whining because they didn't get their way, and I think that is a disservice to public service, and I think that is a disservice to mankind and humanity. Why? Because everybody's not going to get their way. If that was the case, we wouldn't even need to be praying. So when you look at Trump versus Hillary, the question is, again, who's going to best benefit those that we're talking about, the urgent race crises in America and dismantling mass incarceration? Okay, let's ask this question. If we look at Trump's presidency, do you think that he's going to dismantle mass incarceration? We'll start with that. Come on in, Aaron and Nikki.
You know, man, I want
no. One word. No.
I agree, Nikki. You know what, Baron? Let me say this, and I'm not looking for agreement or disagreement. I'm not trying to sway anybody's thinking, only suggesting a different angle. And what you said is true. Now, from the standpoint of what individuals have as their responsibility to participate in however they can sway the outcome to be the best outcome, then they have a responsibility, hands down. It can't be avoided. Now, again, what I always say about, the aspect of voting is voting can't continue to be based on loyalty to a party just because of tradition. I've never gotten into Democratic or Republican, although that I have studied to see which one are more beneficial, not just to me, but if I'm in a community in southern Dallas, I need to know whose politics affects, the southern sector in which I live. And you made an excellent point, Darren, when you talk about from a parental standpoint. That's almost how I make every decision. So with that being said, here's what I'm going to say it like this. If everybody is verbally saying that they don't want a Donald Trump, then are we really saying that we don't want a mindset like a Donald Trump, which can appear at any point in time in any person in politics now or somebody coming into politics,
including Clinton?
So included now. So here, and this is what I always say when it comes to when people say what they don't want, and they normally speak from a selfish point of view because they're really only saying what they don't want to have that affects them directly. it's a very difficult thing to speak on behalf of those who are not even in your immediate circle, which becomes a human issue that most people don't really, I'm not going to say that they're not conscious of it, but it takes more than, having somebody say to you what their plans are, as opposed to we can all sit back. We've seen years and years of various politicians, what their policies have been, not what they say, but we're talking about execution of policy. And I think that's the main difference. In voting what we call our conscience or our best interest, we have done ourselves a disservice, meaning all of America, in terms of in terms of being swayed emotionally. That's the one thing about campaigning, Baron, and this is, again, Aaron Hopkins talking. Mm-hmm. The one thing about campaigning that I've always disliked, it's not just the mudslinging, but people don't, it's like all I got to do is go on the radio and say, and I can say this right now, Baron, and I guarantee you somebody would bite on it. If I got off this radio right now and called somebody on the phone and said, Baron Glass, now you didn't directly say this, but you may have made reference to something concerning Donald Trump. And you said, well, if it's going to come down to me voting for Hillary or Trump, I'm not going to vote at all, which is the same as voting for Trump. Mm-hmm. And that, I'm taking a TMZ type spin. I'm saying,
right,
just throw something out there. Nobody would investigate to see, but already knowing your character is not that. But we tend to take things like that and run with it more so than looking carefully into motive.
Right. But but Aaron, let me tell you how I am. Okay, because I don't believe in straddling the fence on any situation. Okay, so if we look at the general election right now, there's Trump, there's Clinton, there's Jill Stein, and there's this other guy, Johnson or whoever, and there's some other people. I have an option to vote for any one of those people. Any one of those people. Now, if it came down to just a Trump and Hillary with nobody else in the ring, I can tell you unequivocally, I would vote for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. It's just that simple. You see, because at some point, I'm not going to let ignorance dictate the logic that's involved in this. I already know what Trump is going to do. The guy's already said that. He's already stated that. And if a person tell me that they don't like me, I'm not going to pray to God that they like me. I'm going to believe what they tell me. This guy's saying that he don't like my people. He don't like my kind of people. He don't like what we stand for, and the list goes on and on and on. So if it was a two-man race right now tonight, if it was Trump and Clinton, I can tell you, Barron, unequivocally would vote for Hillary Clinton. I would never think twice about it because I would have done what I felt was best for my two girls. Now, since there are other individuals in this race, that's my struggle there, because if I go with one of the others, am I giving, I think you said, Aaron, am I giving to Trump? And we know that third parties can actually do whatever. So, and I'm just trying to clarify my position, because I don't like to be misunderstood or anything. I like people to know exactly where I stand. So if it was a two-man race tonight, you can rest assured Trump will not get my vote. But since it's not a two-man race, I have other options. So that's why I don't have to choose the lesser two evils. That's why I don't consider it a lesser two evils. Come on in, Aaron, Nikki.
Yeah, so you said exactly what I think we're all saying the same thing. What I'm saying is, and now I'm talking about the average American voter, who, and let me even specify it a little bit more clearly. In the black community, traditionally, we have voted democratically for the last 60-some-odd years, even though it was not the Democratic Party that was responsible for the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, that's a different subject, but my point is, traditionally, we get comfortable in just doing what somebody else does. In other words, being blindly led without each individual making sure, just the same way you're making sure that you're doing what's the absolute best thing for you and your household.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Aaron. I'm saying not enough people, for whatever reason, are doing what they absolutely are capable of doing to ensure that their individual household is getting, best interest out of their vote. So what does that mean in terms of this particular election? I'm gonna digress and say this again. It doesn't matter to me, either candidate, if whichever candidate gets in this White House and they do not address the current situation of injustice in this country, all of the other talk and all of the stuff that they're saying they want to do, it's not even going to matter. Now, again, this is my perspective. Now, Hillary can play around if she wants to when she gets in that White House. Donald Trump can play around if he wants to if he gets in that White House. I can almost guarantee you within 2 to 3 weeks, this country was going to be in turmoil. We're days away from it now.
Right.
I mean, we can't continue to act like this is not happening. So, to me, it's either whichever candidate is, winds up in that position, they've got some hard choices to make, regardless to what they've said prior to that. And again, we all know the value of words. People don't say whatever they think they need to say to get where they're trying to go. But once they're there, that's when the test comes.
Well, I tell you,
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead, Nick. We got about 5 minutes left. Go ahead.
Okay. I think that right now it's critical. There's the attempt to call Black Lives Matter a terrorist group. There's a drive on a couple of states have adopted a blue light laws to designate a hate crime if there's an offense against the police. That it can easily be translated. You know how many protesters could be picked up and charged with that? And that's going to carry a hefty sentence. I think that it's necessary to have that. I think if Trump gets in, the Black Lives Matter, all of the groups, I think you'll almost have a martial law, okay, where what's happening now, okay, with these attempts to criminalize any protest will get worse and worse and worse. Aaron, we don't have the numbers to sustain it. South Africa worked because the population was bigger. You don't have the numbers. And they have all the guns. They have them. And if they start criminalizing protests and attacking hate crime onto it and that type of thing, I mean, you will see people picked up from the streets in numbers that will swell our mass incarceration further. And I think that's a real distinct possibility. No, a distinct possibility. I think it will be a happening if Trump gets in. Because, there's already the media whip up, the fear of Black Lives Matter, the fear of the protesters, all of those things. I mean, I think the first move will be to shut that down. It's the first thing of any dictator. And I think it's necessary. I think if that's allowed to thrive with a Hillary in the White House, because that's a train that nobody's going to stop. The younger people are just not going to take that shuck and jive that's been going on for like the last 40 years. But I think it's essential that breathing and moving and doing what it's doing, and I don't think that will happen. I mean, I know it will be shut down if Trump gets in. And there'll be the further military. There's already the move to militarize. I mean, how can we militarize our policemen more? But we are, and it's a battle that won't be won in the street.
Well,
numbers aren't there.
Nikki, the way I look at it is this: can friend or no friend or whatever the case may be, if a person say that they are for justice, equality, human rights, women's rights, and all these other things, if you say you are for those things, if you're for civil rights, and you can sit here and tell me that you're voting for Trump, then I lose respect for you, because you are talking out of one side of your mouth and you're doing something else totally different, because this man stands for total difference. Okay, you vote for people that you identify with. So what you're telling me, not you, Aaron, what you're telling me is that you identify with this guy and his beliefs, and if you identify with those things, then it's like we are all in water. I don't believe in those things. I don't subscribe in those things. So if you're talking about you're a Democrat, and if it came down to Hillary and Clinton, I'm talking about a two-man race. If it came down to those people, and you would vote for Trump, I'm like Julie D. Chain. We don't need to be friends. Because it's just like I'm married to an atheist and I'm a believer. It's no way. It's you can't side. You know, I'm trying to. You can't straddle a fence with me. There's no justification and logic. Okay, if it's David Duke and Hillary Clinton, who are you going to vote for? You going to vote for David Duke?
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, Aaron, like I just mentioned, very good points made by all people tonight. And again, our goal tonight was to talk about the difference, because we talked about the Republican side, we're talking about the Democratic side. Tonight we've been talking about how will Hillary Clinton presidency address the urgent race crises America is facing in 2016. What will Hillary Clinton presidency do to dismantle mass incarceration and address a police brutality culture targeted unmercifully toward people of color? Belinda, thanks for joining in tonight. Dr. Broder, thanks for joining in out there on the live link. Nikki, Aaron, I know Deb is out there at the convention having a good time. Vanessa's probably out there. Dave Lamont was talking about this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, when the smoke clear and the dust settle, we know that in November, you're going to have to make a choice. And when you make that choice, it's a decision you're going to have to live with for the next 4 years, the next 8 years, or the next 30 years. You've been listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass tonight with Aaron Hopkins and Nikki Bedrick. Aaron and Nikki, good night.
Good night. Good night, Aaron. Good night, Baron.
Good night.
Good night, Baron. Good night, Nikki.
Good night, Hodge.